Brokers Alliance and the National Insurance Clearinghouse present the Business Insurance Zone, a Bravo video event. Broadcasting in HD 1080p on Vimeo, YouTube, the Insurance Newsnet, Agent Navigator, BrokersAlliance.com, and on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and the Insurance Forum. And now your host, the whiz of the biz, Steve Savant. Well, welcome everyone to the Business Insurance Zone, the talk show that spotlights insurance in your practice, keeps you up to speed on insurance news and products, features insurance strategies from top advisors. Get in the zone, the Business Insurance Zone. Well, welcome everyone. Our email address is thebiz@brokersalliance.com, and you can call us at 1-800-290-7226, extension 147 for any questions or quotes you have on life insurance, DI, LTC, annuities, or group pension plans. And of course, our email address is thebiz@brokersalliance.com. And remember, I'm not a tax or legal advisor, so before moving forward with any of the plans or strategies you hear on the show, don't forget to talk to your CPA, your attorney, or if you're with a broker-dealer, your compliance officer. Well, I want to welcome today our head of our division of long-term care, Susan Carlson. How are you doing, Susan?
I'm doing well, thank you.
And if you want to talk to Susan after hearing, and believe you me, if you catch any of the videos of her teaching, which she teaches on Agent Navigator on our media area out there, of course on our own site, but if you ever want to say, oh, I want to catch her teaching, I really like the way she talks, I want to get some quotes, you can call her at 1-800-290-7226, extension 147, or write her, susan.carlson@brokersalliance.com. Well, Susan, we've been talking on and off. I've heard you teach. We've done a couple shows already. I'm looking at long-term care, and I want to talk about our first segment of today's show about underwriting, claims, and the definition of activities, right? ADLs, because that seems to be another issue too. So talk a little bit about the underwriting. I know you love Genworth because they're claims, but who do you love in underwriting?
That's a hard question to answer because it really depends on the condition that we're looking at. Not that any company is a impaired risk. However, some companies might be a little bit open towards one diagnosis over another diagnosis.
Give me an example of that. Give me the carrier and who you think may play that.
Diabetes, insulin dependent. Genworth won't touch them. But we could maybe look at a John Hancock or Prudential, depending on how many units of insulin they take. What their AC1 scores are. So it really kind of varies, and also depression. Genworth tends to be a little bit more open to individuals that are on Prozac or some type of antidepressant.
So are there any other issues that you see on a consistent basis in the issues of underwriting? Like you gave perfect examples. For type 2 adult onset diabetes insulin, hey, we're looking at John Hancock Prudential, not Genworth. But Genworth really shows up great on depression, or better on depression. Because we're really, the phrase, I loved how you framed this, in long-term care, when we're in morbidity products, we're really not in substandard underwriting. That word, impaired risk, is kind of a misnomer.
Right. And with long-term care, they underwrite completely different. They look at something that's progressive. Height and weight, or obesity, if you will, is the new smoking for underwriting. So the companies are really starting to look closely at height and weight because that causes diabetes. Diabetes will then lead to problems with mobility. They've tied it into Alzheimer's, also with strokes. It really is a hideous type of disease if it's not controlled.
So I think I just learned something new on the show today.
Okay.
So my BMI is a big deal with LTC.
By
the way, I love broadcasting to professionals because some of these acronyms I can just let them roll off my mouth without having to define them. I kind of like that. But my height weight is a issue. So if I stay in pretty good shape, if I stay pretty good balanced, and is there in Prudential as an example, on the life side, they rule the BMI sector. They take people that are really pretty heavy and still give them a great deal. Are they doing pretty good on this side of the fence?
They are, but Transamerica also really comes into play for height and weight. Genworth, by far, is the tightest on height and weight, but Transamerica, Prudential, and maybe one of the Omahas that we can take a look at. But in addition to height and weight, we always have to look at, are there other factors here? Do we have high blood pressure? Do we have cholesterol? Because with long-term care, like cancer, with cancer, that's a huge deal on the life side. With long-term care, if I have breast cancer and I'm clean for 6 months, I'm done with my treatment, everything has been removed, there's been no type of coming back, relapse, if you will, I'm fine for long-term care insurance. Versus with life insurance, I'm going to be highly rated. So it's actually, I don't mean to be so forward, but it's actually to the company's benefit if you die quickly. So it's when you live
and they
through
call
that.
me a death merchant.
Yes.
I mean, this put a whole new spin on my practice. I gotta have to say. So in long-term care, really, we're going to have to, if we're life insurance and annuity driven as a producer, or we're securities and we do life insurance, we're going to have to change the way we think a little bit about when it comes to underwriting. How hard is this for a producer? I mean, because I'm trying to always insert really anomalous ideas and strategies into our practice to make us look distinct, to really give us full planning for our clients, and LTC is one of these products.
Well, it can be a challenge because we tend to find that in advisors' first maybe 1 or 2 cases are a decline. And that's because the client asked them for long-term care insurance, and sometimes that can be a red flag, but it's like disability. Just think of mobility, being frail, so really bad knees, horrible backs, that's a red flag with long-term care. Versus with life insurance, it's not. But that's where you can really fall to your general agency. All we need is a list of every single medication they take, and if you can, their height and weight, and then we can direct.
So if we wanted to package this for our producer,
right,
and they're hearing the show, we have pre-done forms that they can fill out, data collectors.
Correct.
And then they can go ahead and fill this out, and then you'll make the call who is the carrier of choice based on the data we collect.
Absolutely. And a lot of times, we send it out to all the underwriters first, because sometimes what I think isn't the way that it comes to play. And they're constantly retooling their underwriting requirements because they're looking at the claims experience. That's where underwriting comes from, or from the claims.
Well, I'm trying to condition my thinking now of taking my life underwriting offline.
Yes.
And putting my morbidity LTC head on, now trying to think it through. When I'm in front of a client and do I have to take an exam for LTC?
Not unless you haven't seen a doctor for a couple of years.
So there's no blood or urine?
Traditionally there's no blood and urine. What they'll do is they'll do a telephone interview, which you need to prep your clients for. Because what that telephone interview is, it's kind of like an inspection report on the life side, where they're going to go through the application. They could do a cognitive test, which is a 10-word recall. So I'll give you 10 words. You use each one in a sentence. Then I'll start asking you questions about your lifestyle, because I want to make sure you're active.
Wow, if we have time in the second break, maybe I'll take the test myself live over the internet.
And then we'll come back and we'll say, okay, out of those 10 words, how many can you recall? And it's usually if you can do 4 or more, you're fine. So they do a telephone interview, which your client needs to be prepped for. We've seen too many cases go by the wayside because the clients didn't know. And then
I'm so confused, because right now I'm so used to it in life. I prep the client for the physical thing, no eating before 14 hours.
Yes.
All this. Now we're on a whole different platform here. I have to prep my client for how to answer questions so that they can understand what they're saying.
Well, and a lot of them are very basic questions. So I think the prepping comes into play when you have a younger client, to let them know that, there's some people that can't answer these questions. So please be patient. Just, set the time aside. Almost all the companies have a brochure of what to expect. But again, just prep them, let them know, block 45 minutes, have all your medications and your doctor's information in front of you to make it easier. And then, of course, they're going to pull doctor's records.
And so you have these brochures that actually walk you through the pre-interview process.
Yes.
And again, if you want to just write, or write Susan, just write her at her email, susan.carlson@brokersalliance.com, or just call her 1-800-290-7226 extension 140, and she'll send that to you.
Absolutely.
Well, when I'm thinking about the going through the underwriting process, all right, I made it through underwriting. I got through it. Okay. Now they're looking at my numbers and so forth. I know there's declines, I know there's approval, but are there in-betweens?
Long-term care is more of an accept or a reject.
Right.
Now, some companies will have a couple of class ratings, but we don't have the table ratings and the flat extras that the life insurance has. So there's not a lot of debating or business decisions per se made on long-term care insurance.
So I would imagine no lifestyle credits on LTC.
You know, they take that into effect on the overall picture. But, you know, Genworth is an accept or reject. John Hancock, Prudential, Transamerica, a lot of them will have like a class 1, which is about a 40% rate increase, and then a class 2, but that's it. That's, you know, that's all that we're working with. And if you know you're going to have a challenge with the underwriting, because if you fill out the application, you should have a pretty good idea on the field underwriting. You know, you ask your client, what are you going to do if one of you is not approved? Because the person that is approved needs that policy even more.
When I'm looking at long-term care and I'm going through the application, is the application different than, like, let's say, life insurance?
No, it's just very lengthy.
It's very lengthy.
It's very lengthy, and long-term care insurance happens to be the most highly regulated insurance product because it's still considered a senior product. So there's a lot of, like, a personal worksheet. You've got your a lot of forms, but the application itself is about the same length of a life insurance.
Well, well, first of all, I just want to say on record, I do not like lengthy apps on life insurance or any other product, okay? Yes. Disability, I mean, it's the industry kind of like the evil we have to put up with. But when I do an application, would you say that the questions, and by the time I do the app, I pretty much know where I'm going to go on this. I send it the application. Now, do I call you first, or do I just do an application? Do I give you kind of a census or a kind of a pre-application form that I can fill out so you can kind of walk through that?
They don't do preliminary decisions for long-term care because of the cost of the underwriting, and there's not a lot of cushion in the long-term care setup. So what we normally do is occasionally we might double app, but we try to do everything up front to be able to go with a particular company.
Well, I'm just thinking about all those processes that I learned. Now I have to shift from mortality to morbidity. Unbelievable. Well, listen, coming up in our second segment, we're going to talk about some of the target audiences for long-term care. I got to tell you, this was an enlightening session for me. Remember, you can contact us here on the show at thebiz@brokersalliance.com or call us at 1-800-290-7226, extension 147, or hop out to our website at www.brokersalliance.com. You're listening to the Business Insurance Zone, the talk show that focuses on insurance in your practice. We'll be right back after the break. Steve Savant here. For years, I've heard that less than 2% of all term life insurance ends in a claim. That's not many, and clients had to die to receive the benefits. That's the old term insurance. Now start selling the new term insurance. The term insurance that covers your client through a chronic illness, a catastrophic event, or a terminal diagnosis, and pays their monthly premium during extended periods